Turning to the Middle East, do you have a different policy from the last government on the Middle East?
What do you mean vis-à-vis the United States and the Egyptian and Israeli agreement?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's water under the bridge, so to speak, because here you have an agreement between the Arabs and Israel, and this is a fact. And to that extent, I mean, I think it should be welcomed. After all, you have removed the possibility of a war between between Egypt and Israel, and that must be a very good thing. I think what we must do now is to remember that the real problem in the Middle East is the Palestinian problem, and that's got to be tackled. And let's build, if we can, on what has happened, on this pact, and I think try to convince the Arabs, our Arab friends out there, that it is possible to build on it and to start as soon as you can in solving the Palestinian problem.
What I meant was, would you expect to be following very much American foreign policy, or will you have an
If that is American foreign policy, which I imagine it is, I certainly would follow it, yes. I imagine the Americans are as keen as anybody else to get on to solving the Palestinian problem. That is the root of the problem.
Mrs. Thatcher was dubbed the Iron Lady by the Russians some time ago. Would you expect to be following a rather tougher line than the past government towards the Soviet Union?
I remember talking not so long ago to Mr. Gromyko in Moscow, and he wondered whether or not, and I think some of the Russians wondered whether or not the Conservative government believed in détente. And I explained to him that, of course, the Conservative government would believe in détente in exactly the same way as its predecessor did. But détente's got to be a two-way traffic. Détente means evidence on both sides that they actually want to improve relations. And you will find the Conservative government will be just as much in favour of that as was the Labour government.
So you would be prepared to disapprove of the sentences that were meted out to the dissidents last year, for instance, in the same way as the Labour government did?
Yes, indeed.
What would your attitude be towards competitors and spectators at next year's Moscow Olympic Games?
Well, I think the Olympic Games will have to go on. I think you've got to, if you can, separate sport from politics, and whether people go and watch them seems to be a matter for them and not a matter for the government to a very large extent. And I very much doubt whether, even if the government disapproved them going, it would have much effect.
You wouldn't seek either to encourage or discourage them from figuring out?